Sometimes your extension cord end just wears out or melts or something bad happens to it and you need to replace it. And rather than replacing your entire extension cord, what you can do is chop off the end and attach an outlet to it. We built this one in a previous video for this 16 gauge extension cord with a plastic box, and in this video we're going to install a metal box for a thicker 12 gauge cord. Now it's kind of counterintuitive if you're not familiar with wire naming conventions, but the larger the gauge, 16, the smaller the wire. The thickness difference between these wires, and actually now that I look at it, this is not 16, it's a 20 gauge. Last time we used one of these nipples for the BX cable attaching, which worked great for the 20 gauge wire. It could fit right inside, but this wire, since it's bigger, that's not going to fit, so I'll show you how to get around that. What I'm going to do is cut off this nipple end and then use a ream to bring it up to the appropriate size, and you'll end up with something like this where you can fit the larger wire through. You could use this kind of a connector, but it just, with these edges here, it'll catch on everything. It's just nice to have it round. And in order to keep this from sliding all over the place, we're going to mix up some epoxy so that we can set it in place. And before you do this, just make sure that you have enough wire on the end here to be able to wrap up into the outlet. You don't want to have to undo the epoxy. That's really bad. All right, we'll just mix some of this epoxy together. Once it's all mixed up, we can start putting it on here. I'm just going to go all the way around. There we go. And I'll slide this up onto there. Okay. Now remember, I said we're using a metal box for this. And so if you look inside, there's this little screw. This is so that you can attach the ground wire. So I've stripped out a section of this with a knife, and we're going to attach that. And the reason is if one of these other wires touches the metal box, it will electrocute it, and so if you touch it, then you're going to get zapped. But if you have the ground wire attached in here, then what it does is it creates a short instead, and it'll pop the breaker, so you don't have to worry about getting zapped. Take these wires right through. And then put this ring on. This can be a little bit of a trick. And once you get it on, there, once you get it on, tighten it up as best you can, and then take a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, and you can just use that to spin these little notches, these little bumps, to tighten it down. Next, I'm going to just bend this wire down so I can get it under this screw. And then just tighten that in. Most outlets have the screws color coded. They'll have gold, silver, and green. This one doesn't, but it does say white here. So normally your white goes with the silver, black goes with the gold, and then green goes with green. Green is ground. So we're just going to connect white to here, black to here, and then green onto this ground pin. You want to make sure that you curl the wire in the direction that you're going to be tightening, and sometimes it can be a little bit trickier to work with this multi-threaded wire. Next, we'll wrap some tape around this thing so that if it does, it'll prevent it from hitting the box, but even if it does, it'll be fine. So don't worry too much about being detailed. Then we'll push this down and start a screw in. You always want to start threading it by hand just to make sure that you have it right and it's not cross-threaded. So now that I've got both screws in, I'll go ahead and tighten down both sides. I left this side a little bit loose to make sure I had some wiggle room. So then we're just going to take the cover, and the metal ones are nice because they're rounded corners. Put that on there. And that's it. So whether you're doing it on a smaller cord or a larger cord like this, now you know how to do both. And instead of pitching your extension cord, we can actually repair it, and I think that this is an upgrade and it looks pretty nice. If you found this video helpful, please give us a thumbs up. Thanks.